For 20 years, Khushwant Singh's grandmother was a fixed point in his world, an old, wrinkled woman who looked exactly the same from the day he met her. To a child, she seemed to have bypassed the aging process entirely, staying at the same impossible age for 2 decades. She moved through the house in spotless white, one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop, while the other told the beads of a rosary. Her presence was like a winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. This stillness was rooted in the remote village where they lived. When Singh's parents moved to the city, they left him in her care, creating a shared environment where the two were practically inseparable. Their mornings followed a strict rhythmic pattern. She would wake him, bathe him, and prepare his wooden slate with yellow chalk. Throughout the routine, she sang her morning prayers, hoping the boy would eventually learn them by heart, though he only ever listened because he loved the sound of her voice. This daily synchronized life formed a complete, unified world. Their physical closeness and shared schedule built a foundation of absolute mutual reliance, insulating them from anything beyond their immediate rural horizon. Education and faith were physically connected. They walked to the village school every day because it was attached to the temple. While the priest taught the children the alphabet on the veranda, the grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When lessons ended, they walked home together, met at the temple door by village dogs. The animals followed them the whole way, growling and fighting over the stale chapatis the grandmother threw to them. This era ended when Singh's parents settled into city life and finally sent for the boy and his grandmother to join them. We see the geometry of their rural life, 2 circles in perfect overlap. But as they move into the city, that shared space begins to fracture. The new environment pulls them in different directions as these shapes slowly drift into 2 isolated spheres. The city introduced a modern, mechanical environment that immediately disrupted the physical proximity they had relied on for years. The boy now traveled to an English school in a motor bus, meaning she could no longer walk him to his lessons. There were no temple dogs to feed, and she was left to the courtyard of their city house. The physical distance led to an ideological one. Singh returned home speaking of Western science, gravity, and Archimedes' principle. For a woman whose world was built on God and the scriptures, this new education was entirely alien. The tension between their worlds intensified when Singh announced he was receiving music lessons. In her view, music was the monopoly of beggars and harlots, something that had no place in the life of a gentleman. She met the news with a total silence that signaled her final retreat. It was a profound, passive disapproval of a modern world she could no longer access. When Singh entered the university and received a room of his own, the last common link of their friendship snapped. She accepted this seclusion with stoic resignation, turning her attention entirely away from human interaction. She adopted a new, solitary rhythm. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her spinning wheel, her lips constantly moving in silent prayer. The only break in this routine came in the afternoon, when she would feed breadcrumbs to a chaotic bedlam of hundreds of sparrows. The birds perched on her legs and head, providing her only remaining half-hour of daily joy. When Singh left for 5 years of study abroad, she showed no emotion at the railway station. She simply kissed his forehead in silence, a moist imprint he cherished as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between them. The distance between them was now complete, separated geographically, ideologically, and generationally. 5 years later, Singh returned to find her waiting at the station, physically unchanged and still completely absorbed in her prayers. That evening, her lifelong routine broke. For the first time, she did not pray. Instead, she gathered the neighborhood women to beat a dilapidated drum, singing loudly of the homecoming of warriors. The overexertion took its toll. The next morning, she developed a mild fever and announced that the final chapter of her life had arrived. She ignored her family's protests and refused to speak, focusing entirely on her rosary. She lay peacefully in bed until her lips finally stopped moving and the beads fell from her hand. That evening, thousands of sparrows gathered in the courtyard around her shrouded body. They sat in total silence, ignoring the breadcrumbs Singh's mother threw to them, and flew away quietly the moment the body was carried off. Modernization and time had imposed an immense distance between grandmother and grandson. But as the sparrow's tribute suggested, true strength of character and connection can transcend both spoken words and physical space.